Awesome. Thanks, Shelby. And thanks everybody who's able to get on tonight. We expected it to be kind of a intimate setting via Zoom, if you will, but that added to the whole idea of that's what we want. We want to reach out to people in our community who are leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and just kind of pick their brain and learn from them. I called it the Miami County Masterclass earlier on Facebook, because it's really what we've got is the opportunity to find people who are experts and pick their brains about what it is they've done and where they've come from. Missy Duer is the co-owner of Indian Creek Distillery. I've been able to cross paths with Missy on several occasions. Last year, we crossed paths with Indian Creek Distillery through a donation to our annual gala that unfortunately was canceled this year due to the pandemic. But last year, they were able to donate a basket to us. Unfortunately, no alcohol was in that basket,
No.
but the experience of the tour of the grounds over there at Indian Creek was included, and folks really bid hard for that, and we're really excited about it. And really, that was my first time I'd ever heard about Indian Creek Distillery and the gem that it is. Which blew me away. So then this year, the pandemic hits, and we reach back out to Missy at Indian Creek, but this time, instead of a donation for the gala, we asked, hey, could you spare some of your hand sanitizer so that we could use it here at Health Partners Free Clinic, the local free clinic? And she said, sure, how much do you want? and a couple days later, we had one of our volunteers run over there and pick up 20 of these bottles that have really been huge for us, because we did experience a gap in our abilities to cover those needs. So after that interaction, I just thought, man, I want to know more about what they're doing over there and how they could just pivot like that. So Missy, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on with us. And I have a couple of questions I want to go through, but please feel free to add some things that you think might be valuable to young leaders, young entrepreneurs who are just trying to make their way. And then obviously we'll have questions through the chat. But I thought, first of all, we were kind of talking about this when we were waiting here for the interview to start, but what is the history of Indian Creek and the land there?
Well, just very quickly in a nutshell, I guess, because I could go on for hours and I won't do that. My family's farm has been in my family for 200 years. I am the 6th generation, and my family distilled from 1820 until Prohibition shut them down. And with the law changes in the early 2000s that actually allow you to build a distillery in Ohio once again. It had been prohibited due to state law right after Prohibition. Every state had its own laws, and Ohio is a control state, so they were still controlling the distribution and the manufacturing of alcohol. But that changed because they obviously saw a tax base there that could come in and help with expenses throughout the state. So Joe and I, we pioneered again. We, just like my 5th grade grandfather did, and we built Indian Creek Distillery. We resurrected it, I guess, and we are actually distilling Frontier Ohio whiskey once again in my family's original pot stills. Fortunately for us, my great-grandfather, he has a very patriotic name. His name is George Washington Staley. And he saved the stills from the revenuers who would have come by and either axed them, or they would have probably taken them and sold the copper, obviously, for themselves. But anyway, he saved these stills, and that's why Joe and I said, hey, it's the only thing missing on this old farm. We have a 1818 grist mill, we have an 1820 sawmill, which were built by my 5th grade grandfather, and we have the stills, and we have the original rye whiskey recipe. So once again, we put the old girls back to work, and here we are. We did that in 2010, and we're still making whiskey. We actually have 7 spirits right now that we produce.
So what I'm hearing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so from 1820 until Prohibition, your family was making whiskey, and Prohibition pretty much shut them down.
That is correct. They were
Okay.
good, law-abiding citizens. I have some folks who say, sure, didn't you moonshine? No, he didn't. He actually hid the stills away up in the warehouse, and that's where they stayed up until 1997, when my dad and Joe got them down, because we began hosting farm tours here for historical societies, local groups within the area who had always had a historic interest in the farm. And that's where the girls, as we call them, the stills, stayed until 2011, when Joe and I got the girls and took them across the road into the new still house and put them back to work.
Wow. So as you say, 97, you began those farm tours before the girls changed your life. But what was that? So tell me about the different businesses that are running out of your property. You obviously have a functioning farm,
Yes.
but now you in 97 you pivot towards running tours through there.
We did. Those were just farm tours that my mom and dad and myself and Joe were involved in, and we would actually take people all the way through the farm. It took hours and hours and hours to do that. There's lots of history here, but the pivotal moment, as you meant there earlier, is when we actually constructed the new artisan distillery and put the stills back to work and began actually distilling whiskey.
So you had that while you were doing these farm tours. You had this moment of vision that said, "I build it and they will come."
That's it. That is it. It's that simple. I always knew that this was my destiny, and I think for speaking to young entrepreneurs, you have to know what's in your heart, and you have to follow your heart. And you have to listen. And if you listen with your heart, you're going to be in the direction that you're supposed to be, going towards that direction, living in that direction. And so for me, I always knew that I would come back here. After my parents passed away, I knew that I would eventually live here. And at that time, though, I never really thought about distilling because the laws were prohibiting it. So that thought never occurred to Joe and I until the laws changed around 2005. We moved down here in 2007. And with that law change, we said, wow, can we make this farm profitable again instead of just being an old farm with old buildings, which drains on your finances? Can we make it profitable? Can we make it another, once again, a hub for the community? Because that's what it was. It brought community together here. People purchased grain here, then they would buy some alcohol, and they actually got their logs sawn into lumber or boards on our sawmill as well. So this was a really busy entrepreneurial place. And I guess for me, I have entrepreneurism in my blood. I guess I can't help it. And Joe is the same way. I've been blessed with a wonderful husband who feels that this vision is his too. Many people don't have that with a partner. I have been very blessed. Joe loves this place as if it is his family. I think he is part of the family now. You know, he is part of the legacy that will go on. But that's the change that happened to Joe and I. And you know, again, we didn't do this when we were young. The opportunity wasn't there. So
Yeah.
we had.
How old were you? And I've been told I'm not allowed to ask a woman how old she is. Yeah, I know. How old was Joe when you guys came back and got to work?
How old was Joe? Well, he's 4 years older than me. We were in our early 50s.
Really? So in your early 50s, you decide, hey, I'm going to go back to the old farm and we're going to make a go of it.
Yeah.
What were you doing prior to that?
Very entrepreneurial again. We own Body and Soul, a natural health store. It used to be in Troy, and we moved it to Tip City. Joe was in the construction business. In our younger days, we farmed. You name it, Joe and Missy have done it. which has given us a lot of experience in the pluses and the minuses of being self-employed. We've never done anything else. And so I guess we are born of the school of hard knocks. We understand that. And for us, again, I'm not a very good, I don't recommend this to all young entrepreneurs because we just did it by the seat of our pants. There was no scaling it out. There was no financial plan. We're a little crazy. We just, that's the way, but that's that wild heart that says, hey, you know what? There isn't anything that we can't do.
I think that's called intuition.
I believe so. And destiny for me.
Yes. Intuition, and you're right, destiny, a path that you were on. So let me go back real quick though to your fifth great grandfather, correct?
Yeah.
So he was making whiskey then. If you look at the time, he was making whiskey the same time the Hainers were in their heyday of making whiskey.
Yes.
Do you know what kind of relationship was happening there, just for the history fanatics that might be in the crowd?
You know, I don't. We were a frontier. We were a commercial, one of two commercial frontier distilleries in Ohio at the time when the DSP numbers became into effect. That's your distiller's permit number. That happened in 1862 with Abe Lincoln. He needed to drum up money for the Civil War. He decided to place an excise tax on whiskey, and so he had to give these distillers numbers to keep track of their taxes. So up until that time, my family distilled with no taxation. Then they changed and they became distillery number 5 in District 10 in the state of Ohio. So as for Hainer, they were a much more commercial level, a city, industrial versus us. We've always been homespun frontier. That's the difference between us and Hainer. My family never bottled their whiskey. They were true frontier distillers. You would have gone home with a jug.
Wow.
Or a barrel.
See, that's cool. Did you ever think about selling in jugs instead of bottles, just in the liquor store?
Well, the states, the feds, I should say, is lightening up on that. I just found that out.
Really?
Yeah, that you can actually sell whiskey in a jug now.
Jeez.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. They might just let everything go with COVID-19. Who knows?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, let's look, if you will, and hopefully you're willing to indulge me in some of these questions here. But you know, you talked about some of the things you've overcome to be in the position that you are. Could you tell me what your hardest year was in this process of growing this distillery? What was your and Joe's, either a year or a season or a barrier that you can just look back and say, that was tough, I almost thought about quitting?
Well, I think it was at the beginning that we had no idea of the response we were going to get and the demand and the amount of work that this was going to take. I think Joe thought, I'll work down there a couple days a week. We'll make a lot of money. Ha ha. And here we go. Well, the thing is, there's a lot of, I would tell any entrepreneur starting a distillery, you better plan on more money than you ever thought. Figure for more money because it's going to take more money. Time, ability, and the learning curve. But for us, there's been several years it's been challenges where it's just been Joe and I, and it's been really difficult on Joe to stay focused and say, okay, this is really what I want to do here, because it became a full-time, very demanding, all encompassing life. It is our life. And I don't think we ever thought it would be that encompassing, that there is not really any time that it is not about whiskey or the marketing or the place, the story. What are we going to do? What about bottles? What about this, and this? And so, yeah. And employees, finding someone who has the heart for history, the heart for understanding that this is a historic treasure, and the girls need treated that way. They're 200 years old. So you're just not going to slam around on them, scrape, scrape, scrape. You're not going to do that. You're going to treat them with respect. That has been really a huge hurdle for us. That's been difficult, to find that heart in someone else. Because I have my children are daughters. Well, they don't want to come down here and do this. Yeah, I don't blame them. Their husbands are busy. They have their professional jobs. They're not ready for this. Hopefully someday they will be.
It's kind of like finding Charlie, right? Yeah, you want someone to take care of the chocolate factory. You're looking for Charlie.
Yes, you are right.
You feel that's probably one of the hardest things was that transition of doing it alone, you and Joe, and then trusting that someone else could put their hands on it.
Right, and we still we haven't found the person yet.
Mm-hmm.
No, we've gone through a few.
Right. Wow.
Yep.
Well, speaking of employees in the business building, one thought I had, microbrewing. Yeah. Microbrewing seems like, if you'd have told me 10 years ago that it would take me 15 minutes just to look through all the different beers I could potentially purchase, I'd said, you're crazy. Who's going to waste so much time on all these tangerine flavored this and that, but it continues to grow, and all these microbrews grow. And Dr. Burkhart is our medical director here at the clinic, and he has a hand in Warped Wing, and he's always telling me about how it continues to grow. Do you think there will be this transition to distilling in the same way? Do you think there's going to be more of these frontier distilleries popping up?
I don't think there will be frontier distilleries. No one has stills like this. No one wants to do it this way. It's slow. This is low and slow. This takes a long time. This is not efficient to do it this way. It creates an absolutely excellent whiskey. Has a pot still funk that we call it, but it's not a column. So not everybody's going to want to do this. But in regards to the multitude of products out there and the multitude of microbrewers and breweries, the way we understand it, the way we've been thinking about this, there is going to be a saturation point. Yeah. There's just going to be too many. I mean, how many lemon and watermelon beers, like you said, are you going to drink? That's why for us, we're staying totally traditional, which goes with our history, my heritage, to be traditional. It's going to be that way with the distilling industry too. I mean, and I think the COVID-19 thing affected some distilleries, though the hand sanitizer was a lifesaver for artisan distillers all over the United States.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So since you brought that up, what inspired that pivot? Was it just were you afraid that liquor sales were going to go down all over, or in particular to frontier distilling because of the uniqueness? But what was the inspiration for that pivot?
Well, for us being frontier distillers, we used to have our alcohol in about 250 state stores throughout Ohio. Long story short, Ohio Department of Liquor Control has been really seizing the opportunity to only have alcohol that is fast sellers on the shelf. Ours being super unique, not your average Jack, Jim, and the boys. They will pull ours off. And the fact that over the last year or two, our sales here on site has just gone through the roof. So whatever we make, we really sell just about everything down here at the distillery. So with the COVID-19 and then the slowing down of the economy, even with liquor agencies being allowed to stay open, our traffic out here became like zero. People were afraid, remember, to drive. We were told to stay at home unless you had to go out. this is a destination out here. You have to think about coming out here on Staley Road. It's not like going to Myers or Kroger's.
Yeah.
Where they have, some of those have estate stores, of course. But anyway, so the World Health Organization, because of the demand for hand sanitizer, evidently in working with American distiller associations, artisan distillers, in conjunction said, okay, hey, we're gonna open this up, and we're going to allow distillers to make hand sanitizer to help fill the need, because it's alcohol, and we had alcohol. So at first, Joe was like, I don't want to do this. He really didn't. That was a Sunday. That was right at the very beginning. There about mid-March, and then the WHO came out and said, yes, artisan distillers can do this. And actually, I kind of just went with my gut, and I kind of went over Joe a little bit with this.
Sounds like a theme here, Missy.
Are you getting that? Yeah, it's sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. Good thing Joe's not here. We don't need his comments. But anyway, he'd probably say, yeah, I just listen and let her go. I contacted Tanya at Living Simply Soap because I and Joe were not aware of sourcing the hydrogen peroxide, the glycerol. We obviously had water, and we obviously had the alcohol. I thought Tanya could help me with that, and the sourcing of bottles. So I just sent her an email that night. I thought, this works. If she's interested and gets back with me, we're going to go. Well, she did. And she said, let's do this together at the beginning, then we're going to split off, which is what we did. We helped each other, and then we broke apart. Wow. But it was teamwork to get us going, and actually to really launch our opportunity. I mean, looking back now, if I would have done my research, I probably could have done it on my own, but there was something that said to me, I need to partner with her. And I feel really good about that. We worked really well together, and then everything got really busy, and she said, I'm not going to sell any more of yours. I'm going to do my own. And that was fine. And we went our separate ways. But at the beginning,
kind of using that co-compete thing,
yes,
where we're gonna collaborate, we're gonna work together so that the entire industry can improve.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Because her clientele was totally different than mine.
Yeah. Right.
She had her own base. She already had her website with her information on there. She just threw in the hand sanitizer and began selling it online. Me, we opened our doors and people came to the distillery, and folks who had never heard of us began hearing about us. So it was like, wow, this is really amazing. We had no idea it was going to take off. And I think for a small distillery, I think we have sold maybe and given away, I don't have the total statistics, between 15 and 20,000 4-ounce bottles, and that's not counting the gallons that we gave away.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's
for us. And we changed. You're talking about pivoting. Sabra, my oldest daughter, said, Mom, do you realize that you created a brand new product, a brand new line in 1 week? And only small business could do that, could be that fast on their feet to go nimble. We can do this, because corporate would take so much decision making. This was basically me and Tanya, Joe just kind of hanging out there thinking, oh boy, here we go. And then coming along and with the whiskey and figuring out the percentage, because I don't like doing that. And there we went. And there we were. And it was like, she was just like, Mom, you have no idea what you've done. I didn't even think about it. And that's so instinctual entrepreneurship. You just, okay, let's do it.
Do you think, Missy, now I realize you come from a family of entrepreneurs, but do you feel like you can only be born with that kind of intuition, or could your experience that you've had in life as an entrepreneur fuel that ability to be so innovative and that sort of thing, creative?
And fearless. in a
And
sense.
fearless. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You got a couple scars along the way to get that fearlessness. Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
think you do have to be born with that, and I I think you have to be born with it. I know that entrepreneurial experiences that we've had along the way, of course, that you don't realize the connections that you make, the networking that you're like, oh, them, oh yes, them, okay, I'll call him up, and you're like, wow, I didn't know this would all come to this point from years of relationship with people and building a relationship and people that you're not even super good friends with, but we all jumped in and helped each other, and it's so cool. That's I don't know how to explain it. It's just, it has such a wonderful feeling about it.
yeah. What, in doing something like this, a couple things I'm hearing from you that I think that are so important. You mentioned reaching out, communicating with people, other local business owners. Have you found that to be successful when you do reach out?
Most certainly.
Yeah,
It's about we're not in here, we're not doing this to be better than you.
yeah,
We're doing this because this is what we are supposed to do. And
right.
it doesn't matter what you think, or if your product tastes different or is made different or is prettier, whatever it is that you're making, it doesn't matter. You have to be happy and satisfied with yourself and say, I feel good about this. I'm proud of what I do.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds to me that you're living out a mission or a passion, and the margins come as they come.
They do. And
Yeah,
that's, if you would interview any true entrepreneur who's not um, Ted Turner, I'm going way back here, but some of these big guys,
yeah,
you would find out that it isn't always about the money.
yeah,
It's about the reward of your idea, and that you're bringing the inside of you outside. You're manifesting it out here.
right.
And that's really cool.
Right. So kind of a quality of life
Yes,
piece of it. Do you think, before I forget, when we get off the hand sanitizer, do you feel like this will be a permanent product for Indian Creek?
most
You will
certainly.
continue to make it moving
Oh,
forward.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I'm just wrapping up my latest batch of blank bottles that I have, because I can't order any anymore at the moment. They're all bought up, because you have to understand, we get our bottles from China.
Right.
And until all that pivots and changes.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'm finishing up this week, going to get that cleared up and get it out of the still room, because we've got to get on with the making of whiskey. And Joe's working around all these tables and all these plastic jugs and stacks of bottles that need labeled, and it's getting to us. We're like, okay, this is just a little bit too much right now. It's getting blurred. Before, when it was just hand sanitizer, you're like, okay, hand sanitizer, stills are over there, hand sanitizer. Now we've got both going on, and they're fighting, they're competing with each other, and it's
Yeah.
time for one of them to go back on the shelf for a little bit. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep.
That's great. How do you feel? Do you feel like business during COVID-19 will there'll be this great movement towards small business, shopping more local? So you're talking about can't get your bottles because of the supply chain issues. I don't know if anybody else has been waiting on a package from Amazon for the past week, and
Yeah.
just it got lost somewhere. We don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think folks are going to return back to saying, hey, we need to look at our local resources and start purchasing that way?
Oh, yeah. I think there's a huge shift already.
Yeah,
I can tell with my customers who come in, they want to buy local. They 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 want to support the small businesses within their community. They're a little bit done with the global thing. I think the deal with China really cooled everybody
hmm,
uh, with our purchasing. And I think our purchasing habits are going to change. I think we're going to be more thoughtful. We're not going to be, I think, as I'm thinking as frivolous,
Yeah. Yeah.
wasteful perhaps. I think we're going to be more thoughtful, and more thoughtful of each other. And that again goes into the small businesses. The small business owners that I know around town that I have visited, they are so busy, and I'm so happy for them.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
pleased.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear, especially from someone in your position who's in the know, that is something that you're seeing. What do you think then, having said that, what do you think the local economy will look like 12 or 18 months from now? If you could use your intuition and your crystal ball, what do you think is going to be happening?
Well, I think if the pandemic stays away and we continue to move on with the economy and things open up more, as things open up, people become freer, and they become freer with their money and freer with ideas, freer to take those risks again, because we're human. We forget quickly. A year from now, we'll go, what'd we do? We stayed in for 2 months. I mean, we won't even think about it. It's human nature. It can be a positive and a negative. We need to learn from our history, from our past. But I think if that fear is gone, people are going to be, okay, well, let's build this. And I think I'm going to start this little storefront here. I think the fear will go away. Right now, it's still pretty real. There's a lot of places that are closed, and I'm very disappointed, and I'm sad for them
Yeah.
that this had to happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think if things are good, I think we'll be just fine. But
Yeah.
it all depends on that COVID.
Yeah, yeah. What's interesting is that if you think about, you mentioned the history. If you think about, the Roaring Twenties and how the 1920s into unfortunately 29, those are really good economic times, and it's almost like we're replaying something. Something
Yeah.
seems bizarrely familiar about how
Mm-hmm.
the economy was just hitting it, and then the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic comes through. But I think you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right. And of course, then they had, 1918, they had the Spanish flu at that time too, and we're able to come out of it and into the Roaring Twenties. So
Yeah.
you're right. It just depends, I suppose. What?
Well, well, I was just going to say again, that's just human nature. We're pretty resilient as
Mm,
people.
yes.
It's amazing sometimes. How people can be at the lowest of the low, and then all of a sudden they're at the top.
Yeah.
That's the human spirit. It's so wonderful.
Right.
Don't ever discount being a human being and what's inside of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, the stock market tickers, watching through history how those play out, you can see the emotion in
Yeah.
business and how it flows. And it's a natural thing, a natural order, it seems like, to be so unnatural and so unpredictable. So
Yes.
I want to ask you just two more questions and we'll open it up here. I don't want to take up too much time, but um, if you could go back, you and Joe could go back at the beginning of this experiment with your girls, what would you have potentially done different?
Probably nothing.
I had a feeling you're going to say that.
Uh,
I'm just amazed by you and Joe at the experience you've had, the chances you've taken, and then just to decide that, yeah, we want to do this. I mean, I think that's something that's so huge and so freeing. And I hope young people hear this and like, what I'm feeling and hearing is that it's never too late to get after your passions. And if you want it, go get it. And you're just the two of you are living that every day, and it's so impressive.
yeah, I mean, do I wish I'd be 35 and doing this? Of course I do.
Hmm.
Yeah, but you know what? The cards weren't dealt that way. It was
Yeah.
not supposed to be that way. I wouldn't have known. Joe and I've talked about this a lot. Uh, we both wouldn't have known what we know today to be able to do what we are doing and to handle it the way we are handling it emotionally, spiritually, the whole thing, mentally,
Hmm.
physically, some days I wish I had more energy, but actually we do really good. I've had employees that say, man, you guys run circles around me. Well, it's in there, and you get the drive going, and you're like, yeah, let's do this, and it also becomes habit too. It's something that we do every day. And but anyway, yeah, it's no, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's a way of life.
Yes.
And you can really tell that's what you and Joe, you're living life, and this happens to be a part of it.
It's
So,
right.
so I have one more question, and I'm actually stealing this from Tim Ferriss. If anybody's a Tim Ferriss fan, he ends his interview by asking, if you were given, you have a month to put on a ginormous billboard off 75, one word or phrase for everybody to read as they're driving by, what would it be?
Follow the legend.
Follow the legend. I like that.
That's one of my hashtags. It's because of the legendary history here. I mean, part of my slogan is drink the spirit and become a legend.
That can happen in a couple different ways.
That's exactly right. And it's up to you how you want it to happen.
Yeah. Even in my own mind, I could be sitting alone and think I'm legendary if I've had a little too much spirit.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I thank you so much. What kind of questions do we have out there right now, Shelby? Does anybody want to raise their hand and speak up, or we have some on the chat?
I have some on the chat. So here's one. You stated that you did not do a significant amount of planning. What do you think were the advantages and disadvantages of this, specifically financial planning?
Yeah, exactly. Well, from a true business point of view, you really should have a business plan. Joe and I have just never operated that way. So yes, you should do that. And you should have some input from an accountant to say, this is how much money this is probably going to take. This is how much you need over here. This, and this. We just didn't do our homework. We just, like I said, we just jump in. Depends on the person's goals and how much money they are investing. If they don't feel it's real risky, go ahead and jump in there. Take that risk. You're going to have a reward, I believe, for that risk if you follow through and have faith in it. It's when you falter and you fall back and you lose faith, that's when that fear sets in and you go, whoa, this is scary. Because I'm not saying that financially there's been years when it's been rough for Joe and I, and we're like, we are nuts. What the heck are we doing? And then you just take a deep breath and you just keep paying those bills and you just keep doing the next right thing is kind of our slogan. Just do the next right thing. So yeah, I would have a business plan. A small one. A real little one, maybe? Maybe?
We must have an accountant in the crowd. Is that what we got going on here? It's a CPA
Yeah.
around here.
Yeah, probably.
Zio, my next question I have is, you've touched on working with your spouse and family. What has been the biggest challenge there, and how have you overcome it?
Actually, for me, there is no challenge. Like I said, Joe is me and I am Joe. We are truly one. I mean, not that we don't get aggravated at each other. You always do that, but we are the best of yin and yang. I'm probably more of the, I don't know which one's which. He sounds like a yin. I might be the yang. I don't know. But, and my girls, Carmony, my youngest daughter, helps us, and she's a joy. She's been with us from the beginning. I've never had any problem with my spouse. I know I have a lot of friends who are like, I can't ever work with my husband. He'd drive me nuts. It's never been that way with Joe and I. So you've got to know thyself and know your significant other, know your partner. If it's someone that you can work with and play off of, and you have the good traits and the bad traits that work together, then go for it. But if not, you better stay away, because it can become very volatile. I understand. So with some people, not with us, thank you.
Sure.
That's good. Well, that's all the questions I have. Justin, do you have anything else?
I don't. As long as there's nobody else in the crowd wants to raise their hand, I just want to thank you, Missy, for taking the time to get on with us for this interview. It blows my mind, the kind of talent we have here in Miami County, right under our noses, folks with such experience that we can learn from. And I just can't thank you enough from taking time away from the girls to come talk to us. And you'll have to thank Joe for letting you come up here and talk to us and making him do all the work downstairs.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Thank you so much. This has been a joy. I love encouraging. It's kind of like all those entrepreneurs, go out there and do it. Live your best life. Follow your heart. That is your guide right there. So thank you again for this opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody who's been on here. We are recording, so we'll have this edited and we'll put it up, and so you can watch it again or pass on to somebody who wasn't able to get on the chat today. But again, thank you, Missy. Hey, go out to Indian Creek Distillery. I hear there's a nice bourbon out there that you can get your hands on, as well as some other whiskey. I've been thinking about that bourbon. So go out there, show your love to these small businesses.
Thank you.